This motorhome is the Hymer Van S, which was introduced at the CMT Trade Fair in Stuttgart in January 2016. Now when I first saw it, so it's now more than 5 years ago, I thought that this vehicle was a major misunderstanding. As much as I like small vehicles, this one was just too small, I thought. Too cramped. Too much inside, but not enough room. Something along those lines. I agreed that it looked great on a dealer's forecourt, but that was about it. Or so I thought at the time. 1 year later, in January 2017, I got the chance to take it out in practice. I had absolutely ideal conditions for a motorhome test. It was freezing cold. On one day the temperature dropped to -17. I was trying to actually shoot video from outside the vehicle, and I even found it difficult to hold the camera with my bare hands. Icicles were hanging off the overhang above the windscreen. But inside, it really was incredibly warm. I was very comfortable. Furthermore, the vehicle handled well on icy roads, and for me it was absolutely ideal for these conditions. So my opinion turned around 180 degrees, and now I think it is great. In this video I'm going to tell you now my third opinion, with the benefit of more than 4 years hindsight since I took it out, and this video was shot in January 2017. Of course, I'm speaking more than 4 years later. As you can see, the Hymer Van S is based on the Mercedes Sprinter. It's got Seitz S7 framed windows, insulated and heated tanks, GRP lightweight floor construction with XPS insulation, and a garage with access from both sides. The garage is not big enough for a bicycle, but it will carry all that junk that ends up in your van that you think you might need one day, and you probably never do. The vehicle is only 565 centimeters long and 222 centimeters wide, meaning that it's much easier to park and drive than most motorhomes. I managed to park it in car parking spaces in towns in Germany, even though there was a lot of snow when I was out. I must point out that 222 centimeters is much wider than most cars, and even those which are as long as the Van S. I also need to point out that it was sticking out a bit often in the car parking spaces, but I think that was largely due to the snow and not anything else. The model I had was equipped with an automatic gearbox. Now, I'm no fan of automatic gearboxes. I try not to drive them whenever I can, and so I think I'm not really qualified to say how good it is when compared to others. I don't think I have the experience with automatic gearboxes to come up with a conclusion. Obviously it's a Mercedes, so I hope it would be better than others. The Van S is rear wheel drive. I found no difficulties with things such as hill starting with snow and ice on the ground. I deliberately looked for hills where I could actually start from, just to give it a bit of a test, and no problem there whatsoever. Now, this is something which rear wheel drives do have a little bit of a reputation on. I did have a Mercedes 190D. Okay, these vehicles came out in 1984, I think it was, but they were noted a bit for being not so good on hill starts. For example, a friend of mine who had a drive that went down, and he lived in Poland, and what he would do with his Mercedes, he would actually drive it out with the rear first, because he found often he couldn't get it to go out when going up. Obviously he had a very steep drive. The Van S has a 2-ton towing capacity should you need to take caravan to make up for the lack of internal space. This could be a useful additional feature. Now, talk a little bit more about the winter. And so both the freshwater and the wastewater tanks are concealed in insulated trays in the floor, which can have hot air flowing through them. Now that is particularly useful when it's -17 outside. The reinforced fiberglass underbody also offers additional protection from weather-related damage, together with that which is caused by stones and grit. The powder-coated aluminium frame is particularly lightweight and sturdy, and also has a thermal bridge insulation layer. It comes with Truma Combi 4 heater, which is a 4 kilowatt output, and certainly this kept me nice and warm. And 4 kilowatts, I think, even for larger vehicles, is pretty good. I mean, now obviously there's the Combi 6 as well, so that is that should really, I think, be quite sufficient. Even even if you left all the windows open, I think. Oh, I'm exaggerating a bit now. So the heater has individual temperature adjustments and the boost function for fast hot water supply and room heating, so you can actually control all that from the panel which is above the door. And I think now it's actually also possible to control it with an app. It wasn't at the time, but it might be now. The Seitz S7 frame windows have acrylic glazing, double acrylic glazing, and this should give better thermal protection than most windows do. The kitchen's quite small, but then again so is the van, so we can't complain at that. The kitchen drawers are equipped with roller bearings for smooth action. They have a servo soft touch closing mechanism and one-handed push locks that prevent the drawers from opening and rattling when the vehicle is in motion. And you will see this vehicle in action if you stick around to the end. But I do need to point out that there is a bit of rattling, but that's the plates which I had actually put on the floor, and so that's really perhaps my fault for not giving a better circumstances for you to hear the test. But it's not the drawers which are actually rattling. The worktop in the kitchen can be extended, and that creates more space if you don't actually want to work at the table. Now, worktops when this came out were not all that common. I mean, now every van's got them. In the kitchen there's a 2-burner hob and a rather small sink and a 65-litre compressor fridge. The living area in the Van S has a MIDI lift tilt roof light, so it's steplessly adjustable, opening angle, and so that lets you have ventilation in at all times, and particularly when it's -17 outside. A double roller blind is integrated into the roof light, as you get with all roof lights, of course. That can make it darker inside and keep the insects out. The interior lighting had LED throughout. Now these days that's absolutely normal, even in the cheapest vans. I think it wasn't really so much the case though when this van was introduced. I seem to recall them still having these old lights in 2016, but these days, I mean, obviously LED is something, if you're going to buy a used van, you might want to actually think about to get this, because if not, I really suggest you changed it. The old system of lighting was very consumed a lot of power, and whereas with LED you just can't notice it. I don't notice it at all. I leave the lights on at night, and when I'm out of things, I just don't notice it. Anyway, so there is also an LED awning light outside with a rain deflector. It's part of the standard package, and it lights up when you go outside, so you can exit the vehicle safely in the dark, and it will light up, of course, if you switch it on. The beds in the Van S are equipped with multi-zone cold foam mattresses that provide support for various parts of the body. Breathable mattress toppers in the rear section also ensure good ventilation. I was only in it for a week, so I can't say that I had the chance maybe to see anything wrong with it. For me, it was a really very, very comfortable. Also, because of the heating at the back as well, it was very, very, very pleasant to sleep in. Now I'll tell you that one of the negative things is the wardrobe. It can also be accessed from the garage, and you can also get a tailgate at the back if you wanted. Sorry, if it's a new one, that is. So that would give you a load through loading space. Now the wardrobe isn't very good. First of all, it's tiny. Of course, I mean there's really not much room in the van to actually make a bigger wardrobe. And I do appreciate that it can't be made bigger. What I would suggest is, if this were my motorhome, and actually did it in my own motorhome based on this experience, is to put a metal bar over the bed somewhere so you can actually hang clothes up. Let's face it, if you're asleep, then if you've got clothes hanging up at your feet, then I don't think it's going to be much of a problem. I imagine you may think differently. Now, there is a hanging bar in the wardrobe, but it's too far down to be of any use, so as though it were put there as an afterthought. The waste tank in the Van S can be drained by pressing a button. It's equipped with an electric valve which can be instantly opened and closed via the switch at the side of the rear garage. Very clever, stops you getting your hands dirty. I think it needs though a bit of practice with it in order to learn how to position the van over the drain, but that's the case with every motorhome that I have driven so far. Now, RV manufacturers often talk of dual use, an RV for the weekends and holidays, and a normal vehicle to get you to work during the week. Now, Hymer hasn't marketed the Van S as such, but as far as I'm aware, that this is the closest vehicle to having that use that I have come across. The dual use idea also, I think, is reinforced. The lounge, the table isn't particularly big, but for two people using it, then facing each other, then I think that is possible. Also, the washroom and the toilet are a very good size. Obviously, the toilet is in the shower tray, and it might look as though there's not much room. It's only 565 centimeters long. Remember, I think that this is very well done. The toilet, washroom, sliding door, great, super. So I know, and that sort of really brings me back to the idea of dual use. Yes, you could actually use this, I think, as a daily vehicle, and then have something which is comfortable for doing trips in. Unlike most vehicles which are said to be dual use, but I personally don't think they are. Now, the starting price in 2016 was around 65k euros, sorry, 65,000 euros, and but that with all the options added on, well, it's going to be probably about 85 by the time it came out of the showroom. How much would it cost you to buy today? I don't know. I can't really see these vehicles losing much money, but obviously what I'm thinking of here is getting these vehicles. I have seen them on the second-hand market, and based on my experience, this is a vehicle which I would really I'd be keen to sort of even recommend. Now, what about myself? Well, I'm going to show you my own opinions now as I'm driving it, but for me personally it'd be too small, and as a full-time user, then it just isn't enough space, which is a pity. Obviously I can get the bike on the back and the bike rack. I don't really have so much problems with that, but I think, you know, for things that I would need it for personally, you know, storing things, particularly clothes. You never know when you're going to get a washing machine next. I mean, I haven't had my clothes washed now for about 4.5 months, and okay, I've got stacks of dirty clothes, but if I hadn't actually brought stacks of clean clothes with me, then I wouldn't have been in this situation. So that I think that's something for me. I would, but if you're using it, you know, as the dual use sort of thing, yeah, I really do think that's great. Or if you're just, you know, going away for even 2 or 3 months, then I do really think it's great. Now, what about how is it driving it? Well, here's something I videoed of myself driving in Baden-Württemberg in January 2017. I'd like to say a few words about driving this vehicle. In fact, I'm going to compare it to something which happened in the year 2000. Then my magazine, which Polish Business News, which I ran then, we did a test on the Mercedes A-Class. Now, I had it in July of that year, 2000, so it had been out for quite a number of months before then, and by then it was known about the problems with its stability and this type of thing. But for me, I found this vehicle to be absolutely incredible because of its maneuverability. And I did certain tests with it, such as driving uphill at speed and see how well it held the road. And there was another vehicle we'd done a test for, which was the Daewoo Matiz. Now, it was unfair to compare the two, but seeing as I did one, then I did the other. Of course, the Mercedes cost more than double what the Matiz cost. But the Matiz, I had to do an emergency stop because I felt I was losing control. Whereas with the Mercedes A-Class, for me, it was really quite incredible. Now, I do appreciate that for people who are far better drivers than I am and who are professionals at doing these things, they realised the problems with the stability, which I didn't realise. But I came away from that test thinking that I have never driven a vehicle that good before. And that is more or less what I feel now with this. I've driven Sprinters before, I've driven plenty of them, but I have not driven a vehicle which has the maneuverability of this one, at least not in either camper or motorhome form. And I'm going to compare it actually to campers even, because that would be fair given the fact it's only 565 centimeters long. This vehicle has it is quite incredible for maneuverability. Now, if we look at other things such as acceleration, for example, it's on a automatic gearbox. Now, it'd be much easier to tell, I think, if it were manual. For me, I sometimes feel as though the automatic gearbox is struggling. But I feel that with every automatic gearbox, it just doesn't seem to have the life that a manual has. Although, of course, I appreciate why people want automatic gearboxes. Let's face it, people buying motorhomes are older people, and as a general rule, they want automatic gearboxes rather than manual ones. So that is that's perfectly understandable. This vehicle I found as well, it's like driving a car. Of course, it doesn't have the footprints of a car, so you can just park it just about anywhere you want. And so you come into a town or a village, and bang, you just leave it there. It's not like you normally with a motorhome, you're sort of struggling to find somewhere to park. And with this, no problems whatsoever, and it'll get into the same spaces that a car would get into. It's only a little bit more difficult because you can't see out the back properly, because you obviously can only just use your mirrors. You haven't got a window at the back. One good thing would be, I think, a reversing camera so you can see what's going on, so you can put them on. As far as fuel consumption is concerned, I don't know that yet, so I'll find that out when I come to putting fuel in it. Obviously, it's on an automatic, so it will burn a little bit more than a non-automatic vehicle. And it's a motorhome, so things are falling around at the back. I put my plates out on the floor, and that's what you can hear moving around. I should have put it away. I left it out when I went out to visit a town, and when I came back, just got in the car, drove off, and then I thought, no, I've just left all my stuff out. So I quickly stopped, put it on the floor, and I'll sort that one out later. That's something you get with a motorhome quite a lot. You forget that you've left things open, all the doors drawers fly open, or you've got stuff on the table and this type of thing, it's very easy to forget. Another question may be, what's the top speed? Well, this thing here is written 180. You might get up to 160, I don't know. I didn't try. I had a short spell on the motorway, but I'm not really into speeding anyway. And I don't think people buy motorhomes with the aim of going fast in them. One drawback I would like to say though is the 12 volt plug. There's only one 12 volt plug, and it's almost at floor level. Almost, I said, not quite. And therefore it's a bit difficult to get to. That's one thing it could be improved upon, maybe a 12 volt plug bit somewhere around here. Anyway, fantastic weather to be out in, despite the cold. And if this were any other van, I don't suppose it would be so fantastic, but it is so warm inside. It's really good. And now I'm at the town called Wolfegg, and this is where I'm heading for. There's somebody on a bicycle. I didn't want to run over, so I won't. Car park. So just stick the van in the car park. Oh, there's even a place for motorhomes. So yeah, let's just stick it in here.